Some K-pop stars play by the rules, but these 20 don't. They've spoken about love and gender identity with a bold honesty that's shaken the industry and changed the way fans see themselves. If you think you understand their stories, you don't. Let's dive in together. Hongjoong has always stood on the edge of tradition, gently but firmly, pushing it forward. In the world of K-pop, where strict rules and stereotypes reign, he speaks about gender and love with a rare sincerity. He believes that people are most beautiful when they are free to be themselves, unbound by stereotypes, unbound by expectations. For him, fashion has no gender, expression has no limits, and love is not defined by who you are, but by how you feel in front of someone. There is something quietly revolutionary in the way he speaks, calm, steady, but with the mark of someone who has deeply pondered the world. He is not preaching, he is inviting fans to question boundaries they don't even realize they have. Invite young people to feel safe in their own skin, and invite the LGBT+ community to see themselves reflected in a space where they have rarely been acknowledged before. Hongjoong's prose is warm, but also contains a glimmer of challenge. What if identity is fluid? What if love is limitless? What if we allow ourselves to be whole? His openness doesn't just break down norms, it softens them, reshapes them, creates space for new stories to exist. And in that space, fans around the world find comfort, courage, and a quiet belief that maybe, just maybe, they are allowed to be themselves. Hongjoong reminds us that progress doesn't always come with a bang. Sometimes it comes as a single voice, steady, profound, and brave enough to imagine a freer world. ENHYPEN's Jake speaks less like an idol talking to a fan, and more like a friend pulling up a chair next to him. In a world where K-pop can be slick and reserved, his sincerity stands out. During fan signs and late-night live streams, Jake shares something quiet but powerful. Love isn't defined by gender, but by connection, comfort, and how two hearts recognize each other. He says it softly, without fanfare, yet the impact is genuine. To Jake, everyone deserves the chance to love in a way that makes them feel safe and seen, and he wants his fans to know that no matter who they love, they belong. What makes this moment special isn't just the words, but the courage they carry. Jake speaks with a warmth that feels protective, almost like he's building a little sanctuary, where labels fade away and humanity comes first. His openness, rare for someone so young and so in the spotlight, has made him a quiet icon for LGBT+ fans around the world. They see in him a listener, an understanding soul, someone who believes that happiness should have no boundaries. And as we continue to explore the stories of artists reshaping the conversation around gender and love, Jake's voice becomes a gateway, a reminder that compassion can change a room, and that the most meaningful truths often begin with a heartfelt statement. Let's move on to the next story. Johnny Soo has always had a different energy, an energy that comes from growing up between two worlds. As a Korean American, he has an open mind, boldness, and deep humanity. In an industry shaped by tradition, Johnny stands out for the way he talks about sex and love, with a calm, confident demeanor that turns heads. He shares that he doesn't believe in fixed rules, not fashion, not emotions, not how people choose love. For him, expressing yourself is not a privilege. It's a right. What about your style, your identity, your heart? They should never be limited by labels created by others. What makes Johnny different isn't just his words, it's the warmth behind them. Whenever he speaks, there's a calm confidence that tells fans, especially LGBT+ fans, that their identity isn't something to hide. It's something to celebrate. When Johnny challenges gender norms, he does it gently, not to provoke, but to welcome. When he talks about love, he sounds like someone who understands it can take on countless forms, each with its own value. That sincerity touches people's hearts. It opens up conversations that fans have buried, giving them space to breathe, to ask questions, and ultimately to be their true selves. So, before we go any further, tell me, where are you watching? Which countries, which cities, which corners of the world are with us tonight? Because as we delve deeper into the stories of K-pop stars who boldly speak about identity and love, Johnny sets the tone. A reminder that authenticity is power, that kindness can be revolutionary, and that each of us deserves a space to be seen for exactly who we are. T.O.P has always lived as an artist first, an idol second. A man who refuses to let the world narrow him down. In interviews, he speaks with a quiet boldness, the kind that makes you tilt your head. He talks about love as something unbound, something that can move in any direction it chooses. To him, love isn't defined by gender, rules, or anyone's expectations. It's defined by peace, by the feeling of coming home to someone who sees you clearly, without labels or limits. And behind his cool, mysterious image, T.O.P carries a philosophy that resonates deeply with LGBT+ fans around the world. He believes that connection is an art form, that two people can be drawn together by emotion, creativity, and uninhibited chemistry. For him, society doesn't have the right to dictate what's acceptable. Only the heart does. That's what makes T.O.P stand out from the K-pop generation before him. His willingness to say things that many are afraid to say. His openness, wrapped in a calm confidence, has become a refuge for fans who often feel left out. It shows them that love, in its purest form, is limitless, and that being yourself is not only valuable, but powerful. As we discover more artists who challenge norms and have the courage to speak their truths, I want to know, where are you watching from, and what stories have touched you the most? This channel is our shared space, a place for honest conversations, new perspectives, and stories that remind us that we are never alone. This is just the beginning, and the next chapter awaits. Taehyun has a way of seeing things with rare clarity. While many shy away from topics like identity and love, he approaches them with calm honesty. In his quiet talks with fans, he reflects first, then speaks a truth that feels genuine. To him, love isn't about labels, it's about connection. The moment two people simply understand each other. What makes Taehyun's openness impressive isn't just the message, but the maturity behind it. He talks about self-worth, about choosing relationships that respect your peace, about honoring the person you're becoming. Fans say hearing him speak feels like being given a breath of fresh air, especially to those in the LGBT+ community who have spent years hiding pieces of their truth. Taehyun doesn't preach, he invites. He reminds people that love should never feel like a battlefield you have to fight alone. In a world that often tells young people who they should be, Taehyun is a reminder that identity is something you shape for yourself. His words carry a gentle courage that lingers long after the screen has gone dark. And as we continue discovering voices that redefine love and authenticity in K-pop, Taehyun's story becomes a beacon of light, urging us all to move forward with integrity, love unapologetically, and believe that our truth deserves a place in this world. Mark Lee's story begins long before he was in the spotlight. Growing up between Canada and Korea, he learned early on that identity isn't linear. It's a vast and shifting landscape, shaped by culture, language, and the people you meet along the way. Perhaps that's why, when fans open up about who they are or who they love, Mark doesn't hesitate. He listens. He responds with a gentleness rare in a world that's often quick to judge. For Mark, love is never about labels. It's always about honesty. about two people choosing to meet each other with truth. What fans, especially LGBT+ fans, hold fast to isn't a slogan or a speech, but how Mark conducts himself. Open, never dismissive, never shocked by someone's truth. In an industry where many are cautious, Mark's kindness feels fearless. He creates a quiet haven, a subtle reassurance that your story matters. He doesn't try to position himself as an activist or an icon. Instead, he moves through the world as someone who believes that genuine emotion doesn't need permission to exist. And perhaps that's the magic. The safety he provides without even trying. Many fans say that being around Mark, even through a screen, is like stepping into a place where judgment dissolves, where identity is free to breathe and to fly. His journey reminds us that understanding isn't loud, it's steady. It grows quietly in moments of listening and empathy. And as we continue to discover more artists redefining openness and connection, Mark's story sets the tone. Compassion isn't a performance, it's a way of life. In a world where K-pop is constantly evolving, few artists spark conversations like Hyunjin. He doesn't just walk into a room, he changes the atmosphere, bringing with him a quiet courage that's both gentle and steadfast. One feels like he's not just projecting an image, but living a truth. And that's why fans around the world draw closer every time he opens up. Hyunjin carries himself with a beauty that's both gentle and powerful, artistic and incredibly honest. But what makes him truly unforgettable isn't just his genderless elegance, it's how he talks about people, identity, and love. He shares that no one should be judged by their gender or how they present themselves. What matters, he says, is the sincerity of the heart, the sincerity behind someone's intentions. For Hyunjin, love doesn't conform to a stereotype, it comes quietly, unexpectedly, and without any rules. This openness is why so many LGBT+ fans see him not just as an idol, but as someone who reflects their own stories. Hyunjin reminds us that identity can be fluid, expression can be bold, and tenderness is never a weakness. His worldview whispers a simple truth: you deserve to love and be loved without apology. And as we discover more artists who boldly speak about connection and self, let this story set the tone. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell, so you never miss the conversations that inspire, uplift, and bring us closer together. There's something about Taemin that transcends any stereotypes people assign to him. He doesn't break boundaries with noise. He dissolves them with grace, with movement, with presence. There's a rare freedom in the way he exists, soft yet sharp, gentle yet majestic. A reminder that identity doesn't need fixed boundaries to be authentic. When Taemin talks about people, emotions, or self-expression, it never feels like a statement. It feels like a truth lived quietly and confidently. And it's that quiet authenticity that makes his views on gender, art, and love so profound. A belief that who you are isn't as important as how you live it. For many LGBT+ fans, this isn't just refreshing, it's liberating. Here's a global star who, with a quiet certainty, says authenticity is more important than stereotypes, and that tenderness can be a unique form of strength. His genderless style, his stage presence, his refusal to be pigeonholed, all of it has created a new space in K-pop where self-expression is free to soar. Taemin doesn't preach revolution, he embodies it. And in doing so, he has become a beacon for anyone who has ever felt different, reminding them that being different isn't a flaw, it's a beginning. As we continue to discover more artists openly sharing their identities and loves, Taemin has created a style uniquely his own, sincere rather than showy, genuine rather than stereotypical, and a courage that invites each viewer to step into their own story with pride. SHINee's Minho has long been seen as the face of strength, his sharp jawline, his powerful presence, the fire of determination that burns in every performance. But those who have watched him for years know there's something deeper, something softer. Beneath that tough exterior lies a sensitive heart full of subtle nuances, empathy, and a surprising openness about identity and love. In interviews, Minho has said that people should never be limited by gender or social roles. What matters to him is sincerity, the sense of safety we feel for one another, the truth we choose to express. He believes emotions are fluid, that true connection transcends stereotypes and expectations. And it's this contrast, the warrior on stage and the philosopher off, that draws fans, especially LGBT+ fans who recognize the courage it takes to speak freely in an industry built on silence. Minho's words become a kind of quiet rebellion. Love is love. Comfort is comfort. Humanity is humanity. He doesn't perform openness for applause. He lives it, gently but firmly, as if reminding the world that strength and tenderness are not opposites. They are companions. His presence is a beacon for anyone who has ever wondered where they belong. A reminder that you don't need permission to feel, to love, to exist exactly as you are. And amid a landscape of polished images and rigid expectations, Minho offers something rare, a space where people are invited to breathe, to be honest, to be whole. In the often tightly controlled world of K-pop, RM stands out with his unmistakable authenticity. While many idols remain cautious, he chooses authenticity, the kind that doesn't shock, but awakens. He once said that identity isn't fixed and love shouldn't be bound by gender or labels. And the way he said it, calmly, deeply, almost poetically, made millions feel allowed to breathe quietly. But RM's perspective didn't emerge overnight. It was shaped by years of reading, traveling, observing people, and questioning the rules society imposes without explanation. He's seen how narrow definitions of identity can break a person's spirit and how acceptance can rebuild it. From that understanding, he formed a belief that is both modern and profoundly human, that every person deserves a love that makes them feel whole, true, and completely themselves. What makes RM's voice unforgettable is the gentleness that lies within. He doesn't preach from a podium, he speaks like a friend sitting next to you, gently reminding you that you are allowed to define your own life. For many LGBT+ fans, his words are not just encouragement, but affirmation, a reminder that their existence is valid, their feelings matter, and their love is not something to be hidden. RM's openness challenges the old notion that idols must be aloof, silent, and perfect. Instead, he shows that vulnerability can be strength, that compassion can be leadership, and that just one heartfelt statement can change how someone sees themselves. His message resonates far beyond fandoms. Love freely, live authentically, and let your identity be free, expanding to the full capacity of your soul. Hoshi's story didn't begin with the spotlight or the spotlight. It began with a quiet decision, a decision to be true to himself, even when the world wasn't ready for it. In K-pop, where image is often constrained, Hoshi stepped onto the stage like someone who had long since broken the lock. What made him unforgettable wasn't just the way he danced, or the precision of his movements, but the courage in his voice. He once admitted that he was willing to explore any style, even styles that society deemed unmanly, because for him, art is the only place where the soul should never be constrained. And when he said that emotions have no gender, that expression should never follow the old rules, fans sensed something had changed. Hoshi's openness has become a balm for those who grew up being told they were too much, too soft, or too different. He shows that identity isn't a straight line. It's a spectrum of colors, sounds, and emotions. His warmth reminds fans that authenticity isn't rebellion, it's freedom. And his boldness proves that expressing yourself can be gentle, powerful, and deeply human. In a world that often demands perfection, Hoshi offers something far more precious: permission. Permission to explore, permission to feel, permission to love without fear. And as we continue this journey through artists who dare to challenge norms with sincerity and heart, his story becomes a beacon, lighting the way to what's to come. A deeper conversation, a broader horizon, and new voices ready to explore the meaning of expression itself. Suga's story doesn't begin with grand pronouncements. It begins in quiet spaces, where he's always learned to understand people. He observes before he speaks, listens before he decides. And it's that calm, thoughtful nature that makes his words about gender and love resonate far beyond the walls of K-pop. When Suga says that labels don't define a person, that love isn't limited by rules or expectations, he says it with an almost awe-inspiring sincerity. He believes identity is shaped by life experiences, by the emotions we carry within us, not by the narrow boundaries of society. For many LGBT+ fans, his voice has become a safe haven, not because he's trying to be an icon, but because he refuses to pretend. He doesn't hide his vulnerability behind a strong exterior. To him, love isn't something you justify, it's something you feel. And when he says that everyone deserves to love and be loved, it carries the weight of someone who's really thought it through. There's a quiet courage in the way Suga exists. Calm, deep, genuine, without being pretentious. Fans see in him a reminder that being human means being gentle. Even when the world tells you to be tougher, his openness doesn't shout, it invites. And as we continue to discover more voices in K-pop, voices that challenge norms, expand definitions, and celebrate authenticity, Suga sets the tone. True connection begins where judgment ends. In a world that often tells you who you should be, Bangchan stands out as a voice that says, "You are enough." His story begins not with fame or perfection, but with a leader who realized early on that power isn't about loudness, it's about compassion. Over countless nights on Chan's room, he speaks with rare sincerity, urging fans to breathe, to be gentle, to step into themselves without fear. He doesn't just answer questions, he shatters the notion that gender, labels, or expectations determine your worth. And when it comes to love, he knows no boundaries, seeing it not as something to possess, but as something to feel. A reflection of respect, acceptance, and truth. What makes Bangchan remarkable isn't grand speeches or dramatic moments. It's how he creates a space where everyone, especially LGBT+ fans, feels seen. He listens, he pauses, he chooses his words like someone holding a fragile truth, reminding people that identity is not a performance and love is not a rulebook. Fans return to him because he offers something rare in K-pop, and even rarer in life, a safe place to exist, uncensored. His support isn't performative. It's woven into the way he protects his members, his audience, and any soul struggling to fit in. Bangchan's openness leaves ripples, quiet, steady, and powerful. And as we continue to discover more idols boldly speaking about identity and love, his story becomes a beacon reminding us that the most meaningful connections begin with the courage to live authentically. Felix's story doesn't start with a headline or a bold statement. It starts with a feeling. A feeling you notice the moment he walks into a room. He exudes a quiet, gentle confidence, like someone who has learned that power doesn't always have to be shouted. On stage, he shines brightly, but off stage, Felix radiates a gentler fire, one that whispers, "You're allowed to shine too." Androgynous beauty, warm hugs, sincere compliments all stem from a deep understanding. Felix has spoken many times about being authentic, about embracing your emotions instead of hiding them. He believes that people are most beautiful when they stop performing for the world and start listening to their hearts. For LGBTQ+ fans, those words have a different meaning. They sound like permission to exist, to feel, to love without regret. Felix never tries to define anyone's identity. Instead, he creates space for people to define themselves. What makes him powerful isn't a single statement, it's the way he shows up with compassion. He treats each person as if their story matters. His style is genderless, gentle yet bold, challenging old expectations without being pushy. And in that quiet defiance, fans see hope, a reminder that authenticity can be revolutionary. Felix shows us that love, true love, isn't about labels. It's about presence, about showing up with sincerity and care. It's about choosing empathy, even when the world demands perfection. And as we continue this journey through 20 voices redefining the meaning of identity in K-pop, Felix's story becomes a beacon, illuminating the next chapter, the next truth. Some stories don't start with rebellion. They start with someone simply choosing to be themselves. And Yeonjun is that kind of artist. In a world that tries to label every emotion and define every boundary, he moves with quiet certainty, reminding fans that identity isn't a box, it's a spectrum. From genderless fashion to bold, fluid ideas, his creative choices are more compelling than any manifesto. Yeonjun doesn't try to break the rules, but the moment he steps on stage, those rules seem meaningless. What sets him apart is the way he talks about expressing himself. Calm, genuine, beautiful, unforced. He encourages fans to pursue what's true in their hearts, not what the world expects. He believes that personality, style, and even love shouldn't be categorized, but lived fully, freely, without fear. That message, delivered not with shock but with sincerity, has made him a symbol of freedom for Gen Z. Especially for LGBT+ fans, Hyunjin represents possibility, the idea that beauty comes from owning your own skin, your own voice, your own emotions. His presence whispers that you don't need permission to be yourself. And maybe that's why his influence goes deeper than a trend. He reminds us that authenticity is revolutionary. So tell us, what resonated with you when you heard these stories today? What did you think? Share them with us. This space is yours as well as ours. We are here to bring you meaning, inspiration, and a place where every voice, every identity can feel at home. J-Hope, not just as a performer, but as someone who understands the courage it takes to live authentically. Behind the bright colors and explosive charisma, there's a man who sees people deeply. He once said, "Some people bring light to a room. He brings light to anyone brave enough to be themselves." And he proves it every time he talks about identity, authenticity, and love without boundaries. On live streams, in interviews, even in quiet moments behind the scenes, J-Hope delivers a clear message. Your worth isn't measured by gender, expectations, or labels. Your worth begins the moment you decide to show the world who you truly are. He reminds fans that their individuality isn't something to hide, but something to celebrate. What makes him so powerful for LGBT+ fans isn't a dramatic speech or a moment that makes headlines. It's the way he normalizes acceptance, the way he listens without judgment, the way he treats everyone as if they deserve space, safety, and warmth. For J-Hope, kindness isn't an act, it's an instinct. And that's why his story shines, because he shows that love doesn't require permission and identity doesn't require apology. In a world that often demands conformity, J-Hope is a reminder that the light shines brightest when we let people live freely and love freely. ATEEZ San enters a room with a presence that stops people in their tracks, not because he's loud, but because he feels real. On stage, he's fierce, sharp, almost untouchable. Off stage, he surprises people with a rare gentleness, a softness that's almost cinematic. What sets San apart isn't the power of his performance, but the warmth with which he talks about people. He once said that everyone has a color inside them, and no color should ever be hidden. That simple idea resonated deeply with fans, especially those who never felt safe expressing themselves. San talks about identity with a refreshing openness. He doesn't divide people by gender, label, or role. He looks at the heart, not the categories. When he tells fans to love themselves in a way that feels true to you, it's more than a slogan. It's a quiet rebellion against every expectation that ever made anyone feel small. Many LGBT+ fans say San sees them before they dare to see themselves, as if he recognizes authenticity at first light. There's something healing about the way San walks through the world. He doesn't preach, he listens. He doesn't demand, he encourages. His message is simple, but powerful. Your identity deserves to shine, your love deserves to be celebrated, and your story deserves to be told. Without apology. In a world that often demands people shrink, San reminds us that being authentic, living boldly, is an act of courage. And for millions watching, that courage is contagious. In every generation of K-pop, there's an artist who's quiet but genuine. And for many fans around the world, that artist is SHINee's key. He didn't rise by following the rules. He rose by questioning why those rules exist in the first place. Long before conversations about gender and self-expression became commonplace, T was stepping onto music shows as a figure who blurred boundaries, whose clear words made people stop, listen, and rethink the meaning of the word normal. What sets him apart isn't shock value or rebellion, it's intentional. T chooses fashion the way a writer chooses words, to communicate, to liberate, to invite others into a world where identity isn't a cage, but a canvas. Time and again, in interviews and everyday moments, he has said what so many young fans need to hear. Be yourself. Your feelings are valid. Your style is yours. He sees diversity not as a slogan, but as a simple human truth. And that sincerity carries weight, because behind the stage lights and the tailored suits is someone who understands the courage it takes to live without regret. Someone who demonstrates, with confidence, humor, and unabashed honesty, that authenticity isn't a risk, it's a liberation. T's presence in K-pop isn't just impactful, it's grounding. He reminded millions that expression knows no gender. Love knows no stereotypes, and being yourself is the most powerful story you can tell. That belief shapes everything he does. The way he dresses, the way he performs, the way he talks about finding his true self, all carry the same message. You are allowed to be who you are. Taeyong isn't rebelling, he's simply living without regrets. And in that quiet courage, fans, especially LGBT fans, find refuge. What really makes him unforgettable is his gentleness. A gentleness that isn't weak, but freeing. He offers an acceptance that doesn't need to be spoken, it's felt. His words remind everyone that love begins with self-respect, and that expressing yourself, fully, honestly, is an act of courage. Through Taehyun, we are reminded that identity is not a box, but a vast, ever-changing horizon, a horizon that only we can explore. Mingyu's story doesn't begin with a dramatic confession or a loud declaration. It begins in the quiet space between confidence and kindness. On stage, he shines with the warmth of someone who knows his worth. But off stage, his words reveal something stronger. A belief that personal identity is broader, softer, and more human than what labels allow. Mingyu has spoken openly about how people shouldn't be judged based on their gender or role, but only on how they choose to treat others. And when he says it, there's no pretense, no distance, just sincerity. Fans, especially LGBT+ fans, feel it. They sense the safety in his tone, the gentleness behind his charisma. Mingyu has a way of making you believe you're allowed to exist without shrinking back, without fear of judgment. He listens, he respects boundaries, he speaks with a sensitivity that's rare in an industry built on perfection. That's why many fans call him a comforting presence, because he meets people where they are, with empathy and patience. His openness doesn't just challenge old notions, it offers new hope. A reminder that the world is changing, that kindness still matters, and that everyone deserves to be seen. Mingyu's voice, steady, warm, and fearless, invites us all into a space where authenticity is a strength, not a risk. Thanks for your time today. If today's video inspires you, please share it with someone who needs this energy too. Let me know in the comments who you want to see next. I'm reading them all. And if you enjoyed this journey, please subscribe so you don't miss the next one. See you in the next story.